Hey, what's happening? Chinese here, also known as China L. Costa, an actress and independent filmmaker here in Brooklyn. I'm joined in by PK in Chicago, my city, and today we'll be doing a film reaction to the film Fresh, released in 1994, set here in New York, written by Boaz Yakin. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. PK, go ahead and join in and introduce yourself.
How you doing? I'm PK and an avid film enthusiast and budding filmmaker. And I'm just very happy to be discussing this film with you today. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and shout out I'm gonna read the summary synopsis on per IMDb first. Fresh.
Okay.
It's an hour and 54 minutes. It's under the genre of crime, drama, thriller. It says death and violence anger a 12-year-old courier who sets his employer against each other. He is a drug dealing courier, by the way. And the principal actors are Sean Nelson, who plays Fresh, Giancarlo Esposito, who plays Esteban, Samuel L. Jackson, who plays Sam, and Boucher, the beautiful Boucher, right, who plays Nicole. And those are the principal players. So let's shout them out. So PK, go ahead and say why you wanted to discuss or have a film reaction to this particular narrative.
Okay, well, since it's February, it's part of Black History Month, so we do some critique some Black films. And this one actually is one that I enjoy watching. You know how you have some movies that you don't mind watching over and over again, and you pick up on certain little nuances that you might have overlooked the first time you've seen it. So this falls into that category. I thought it was smart. It kept you in suspense. Like the first time you watch it keep you in suspense, seeing how everything unfolds. And just the whole premise of the movie was, I just thought it was just excellent. So that's why I thought this would be a good movie for us to critique and talk about today.
Okay, so I saw Fresh. I know I didn't see it when it was first released, but I saw it probably maybe 3 or 4 years thereafter. And
Okay.
at first I was like, what type of craziness? But as I matured as a person and as a filmmaker, actress, and the last time I saw it, which was a week ago, I was really engaged by it, particularly by the young man's performance and how it was told from his point of view, right? I love that he was in fact he was his own hero. He was the hero of his own sister. But what bothered me, what bothered me was that he, as a 12-year-old young boy, had to take on the role of fatherhood, felt the need to take on the role of protector and provider because his father did not place himself in a position to do so. And I didn't like that a young boy has to walk into his manhood prematurely because he still had a lot of growing to do. I love that he felt the need he strategized to make a better way for him and his older sister. Like, she's the older sister, but he is again acting like the older person in the family because there's nobody older in the family acting like the adult, in my opinion. What are your thoughts, PK?
I agree with you to a certain extent. I guess because I work with children a lot in that age group, and in the urban setting, and a lot of our youth take on a great responsibility. Whereas when we were coming up, I can't really speak for you, but speaking for myself, when I was a child, I was raised in two-parent household, and I was allowed to be a child. So I didn't have to worry about, putting food on the table or protecting or even pretty much doing my laundry. You know what I mean? So when you couple that with what some of these youngsters are doing today, it's not uncommon. Now, he was in an even more precarious situation where he's, living in a group home with his sister, and then her being on drugs, his father being this. But but this is where I thought the movie was smart, with the fact that even though his father wasn't present, he was still present.
Agreed.
Okay, and that was the one thing that I liked, is because, as the movie progressed, the teachings of his father did have wisdom, but whatever trials and tribulations he had going on in his life that made him separate from his family to allow them to be in the group home or whatever the case may be, living with the relative or whatever, he was still able to be a father figure, and the son had the wisdom to take on that information and apply it in his life. And that's what I mean. That's why I thought the movie was really, really smart and brilliant from that aspect.
I appreciated that he used coded language via the game of chess to communicate how to effectively strategize to win and to get the queen. To me, the queen symbolized his sister, right? Not in a perverse way, but in a very healthy, familiar way, right? Like, she was the queen that he wanted to save from this corrupt village, corrupt king, which to me was Esteban, and the actor of the great Giancarlo Esposito, right? He was wonderful in that role. Everybody, let me just say, all the actors slayed the dragon and threw it in the river. All of them.
Right.
So shout out to, because without great acting, I'm not transported into the story. I don't even give a shit about what the story is. If the acting is not good, I don't even care.
Right.
So casting the right actor, the competent, magnetic actor is key in transporting me in your cinematic story. So bravo in the casting.
Right.
I also loved that they explored youth love, right? The first crush, right? So Fresh and the little girl, and I loved the little girl. She had such a deep voice, and they were staring at one another. It was there in the play. I love that the writer didn't negate his childhood, that he still explored that part of his childhood. Like, he liked a girl like him. They're looking at each other across, she playing double dutch. That's very culturally Black, right? And he's with his friends, they're talking shit as little boys do, and it's so funny. The little boys want to talk about a little boy thing, and he's staring at her, and they're like, "Oh man, you still checking for her? She's some more." And it's just so funny. It's so funny and so realistic. And but when he finally gets the courage to walk up, I thought was brilliant acting and writing and directing. So he's staring at her like he's, of course, engrossed by her beauty and just who she is. And he walks over, and I'm like, oh, he's getting the courage to say, he's shy. And he walks over, and the first thing he says, "Why are you looking at me? Why are you staring at me?" He's like, "You staring at her." PK, take over. I just love that. That was so wonderful.
But that's that childhood, and you hit it right on the head. It was so perfect, because it's honest. They have all these feelings, but they don't really know how to express themselves. So, but the fact that they wasn't hitting on each other, that was great in itself, because normally that's what they do. The one that pick on you the most is the one that like you the most, at that age. But yeah, that scene when they at the fence, that was a very telling scene. And like I said, that's when they really expressed their common interest, but they didn't have the courage to admit, that they digging each other.
Yeah, and she was like, "Oh, she's like, you been staring at me." He's like, "I know I wasn't. You staring at me. You been staring at me." And she's like, "But I think it's cute." I mean, just so. This writer clearly is very observant or very nosy or whatever word you choose, but he definitely had his ear to the dialogue of the youth, of the Black youth in particular, because that is very it definitely mirrored dialogue that I may have shared as a little girl. I remember I liked this boy when I was 8 years old. Now they 12, so I was 8. But he and I would break up and go together, break up. Would you be my girlfriend? Would you go with me? Yeah, I'll go with you. You know, you know, and I remember him saying, we broke up a million times. I would always break up with him. And then he asked, and then I said, well, he brought some now laters. Now that's real old school for you young folks. And I was a now later head. And I'm like, if you give me a now later, I'll go with you. And he gave me a now later. So, and the deal was sealed. So I love when movies take me back to my childhood in its innocence. So I just that scene was so funny.
Yeah.
But it also later on, so the writer made us connect with the young girl and their bond. And then later on, something tragic happens and I'm devastated. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I also want to talk about how we are introduced to his aunt. It's a very loving, generous woman, and she takes on Fresh and his sister and the rest of some of his cousins, right? So they can be in a family environment, and she's very loving. But Fresh again is trying to take on the provider protector mode, which makes him he involves himself in illegal activity, drug dealing, being a drug courier rather. Right. And she senses it and all that. And even his female cousins, like, if you better get your stuff together, because you're not gonna mess this up for all of us. Like, we don't want to be in a group home. We want to be here. Right. And you want to take over PK, his reaction to all that.
And that was just, letting you show how desperate that situation was for some of them, that they could not jeopardize. And she basically put it to him. She said, if you mess this up for us, I'm gonna kill you.
I'm gonna kill you.
And then she said, and she re-emphasized, I'm gonna kill you. So straighten up and fly right. And he had no response for that, because he knew she meant business. And under those circumstances, it is life or death, because you don't know what kind of trauma as a young lady she was facing in her group home experience, because she'd been involved in rape. So when those things are at play, you gonna, we family and all, like she said, we cousins and all, but hey, you mess this up, I'm gonna kill you. And so I thought that was like real. So it really set the stage of what he was dealing with.
The pressure.
So he had to be mature. He had his job, and he was also conscientious. So he wanted to attend school. Esteban was trying to talk to him when he was doing one of his early runs, and he had to make sure, that, hey, I don't have time to wait for him because I'm going to be late for school. And so that established him as what kind of person he is. He's a stand-up guy. He's respected by the drug dealers that he worked for. He was respected by his peer group.
He was.
So, conversations that he has with his father, lets you know that that's his foundation. And he has a love and respect for his father. And he's willing to meet his father on his own terms. But it also, I thought, was important when he was getting back to, why his father probably wasn't there, because something may have gone down, because he said, I'm not supposed to be seeing you.
Yes, he did say that.
So, personally, as a person that, had to go through the court system to be involved with my child's life, and being the person that's, supposedly doing the right things, if his father was supposedly not doing the right things in his life, that would add an additional challenge for him to be able to be involved in his son's life. So we had to take that into consideration as well. But as he made the effort to meet his father on his own terms so he could have that quality time.
PK, first of all, shout out to you again. Y'all, PK always dropping the gems. Thank you for even bringing up the point about his female cousin. why the stakes are so high for her, for him to not to sabotage that environment, because you're right. Whatever group environment she came from, home group environment she came from, she could have been molested, right? Sexual abuse in some way. And I think, okay, like I'm gonna go, like my childhood was very guarded. Like I grew up in a low income community. My mother worked at a thrift store. But I was a child. Like my childhood was spent like playing double dutch, choreographing dances, running. We would play Captain May I, children games, right, in the community. And like the neighborhood, the other neighbors, my mother's at work, would look out for us, make sure we were behaving properly. So I was just a child. And then I had my mother and father divorced when I was 8, but my auntie, my granddaddy, my uncle, even my father, everybody was still involved in my brother and my siblings' life. So I was just a child, and nobody ever, thank God, nobody molested me or raped me or anything like that. And that wasn't even like, I wasn't even in danger or scared about that. But that's why I didn't think about, she could have been in danger of being molested or was molested. So that's why she was stressing. I was thinking in terms of, I want to be around my family. I don't want to be in a group home. But you brought up another point that I didn't even think about. So thank you for that. Yeah, it's really tragic. How some young people, how they're exposed to all this ill behavior. It's really sad. It makes me really sad. And it makes me grateful that I didn't have that experience, but
Right.
It makes me sad that other young people have to endure that, or had to endure it.
Right. And the thing about it, we find out more often. I mean, these things happen so frequently. It would be mind-boggling if you really knew the abuse that young people endure, in this country and elsewhere for that matter. But yeah, so that in my mind, that was a strong possibility that she would have to deal with,
Right. That's true. That's especially, girls. Yeah. And even connected more to the movie. So his sister, let's talk about his sister, the beautiful Boucher, the very talented Boucher, right? I loved her in Dead Presidents. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what too, what I appreciate about Boucher, I really appreciate her acting because I'm always moved in my soul by her performances, her interpretation. But I also, excuse me, like that Esteban was going on and on about she was this beautiful queen, and the fact that she was a deeply melanated sister, a dark-skinned sister. I just think that was so wonderful. Yes, she was addicted to drugs, but that was not her humanity in totality. That was a part of what she was, how she chose to cope with the issues she was dealing with, right? But that wasn't who she was at the core. And I love that they just lifted her up. Like the other characters tell you who you are as an actress. When I read a screenplay, the other characters tell me who my character is or how other characters view me, which helps me tap into what I'm supposed to convey on the screen or on stage, right? And so she carried, although she was addicted to drugs, she carried herself in a very kind of like, she was wise. She had a quiet wisdom, even though she was addicted to drugs. I just love like her nonverbals, and like Fresh loved her and she loved him. But it was a weird, like, this is how I know how they were both coping in a way that was destructive. But again, that's why you have parents to guide you. And they didn't have that, right? Not steadily and not in a way that is the traditional route. You want to go ahead and chime in on that?
Yeah, and then also you got to think about it. It will be, and from Fresh's standpoint, because if you notice when the aunt was trying to get him to chime in on helping her to stay, he was like, so that gave you, and I think that might have been a setup for the movie and how it progressed, but that gave you a thought that he was indifferent about his sister. Okay. And because she said he don't care, and even she felt that way. But then if you couple that with what we know about how the movie ends, and plus how he interacted with the young lady, love, he doesn't know how to. So by him pulling back didn't really necessarily mean he didn't care about his sister and her well-being, because through the movie you learn that that was paramount to him.
And he said to her when as she was packing, he was like, because he mentioned that his aunt, I just call her Aunt Jane, whatever, or Aunt Michelle.
Right.
You know, Aunt Michelle love you. She's like, she love everybody. That don't count. And then he said, I love you. My heart broke. It broke.
Right.
I was like, for a 12-year-old young boy to be that vulnerable, like that's not cool at him to say, I love you to your sister. Like usually you like hitting your sister in the head. You like, you know, my brother and I used to fight all the time. And but she was much older than him, but still was like for him to be that vulnerable and say, but I love you. But that wasn't enough to keep her in that house.
Right.
Right. And so to me, it's like from that point on, he had an agenda. He was motivated. I need to protect my sister. And whatever that means I need to do to protect her, I don't give a shit who else it harms. I don't care. It's about my sister and all I have is my sister. I have my father too, but at the core, it's just my sister and I. And whatever I need to do to protect her and get us in a safe space, that's what I'm going to do.
And the good thing about it is, like, once he did make up it in his mind, the last chess game, not the very last one, but one of the chess games he had with his father, I felt was a pivotal point in the movie to make him go in that route when he schooled him on strategy. He asked him point blank about, he said, every time I attack you pull back. Okay. He said, it's just like any other piece on the board. Okay. And then also he said, what kind of player am I? That's analyzing your opponent. And he said, am I a defensive player? Am I an offensive player? He said, I'm neither. Okay. And then he said, then he started describing the types of players. He said, if you got somebody that's really trying to approach it this way, approach it that way. And then that goes back into how he went about trying to free his sister from the clutches of James and
Esteban,
Giancarlo Esposito's character, Esteban. Okay, like you said, Esteban adored his sister. So he can use that information to approach him in a manner by using what he loved. That's his vulnerable spot. Right. That's his weakness.
Right.
That's his weakness. So as you can see, as the movie progressed, when it was time to put, the things in motion to free his sister, he used that love and that desire to possess his sister as the linchpin to get him moving in the direction he needed him to go in order to get rid of everybody. So I love the fact that he, we always say that, and, in our communities, like, yeah, we playing checkers while they playing chess. Okay, his father showed him these chess is in this world, played chess against people that was playing checkers, and he came out on top. So that's why I thought it was like, so it was just so brilliant how those pieces just fell into place. And when he's talking about pawns, and you can see how he knew his best friend's weakness was his mouth, his ability, his desire to be something other than what he is. He used him to his advantage. Right. So that's why he brought him on to be his quote unquote help when he's running. He knew that if if as I set these people up, I need certain information to get out, but I can't let this information out. But I got to bring him in to do it. Now, he didn't necessarily want him to get hurt, but he did want him to do his job. But as his father taught him, if you got to give that pawn up, you give it up. And then
That's so mature.
Yeah. So he was thinking all in those quiet moments, in those times he went to go put his money up, and he sat on that railroad track. He's thinking his dreams for the future. His situation. He's being reflective. So he's strategizing in those moments.
Yeah.
Then he went and got the chess piece, because after he went to his father's place, and his father had all these boards set up where he playing different people, and he said, then I'm playing myself on this game. And he said, well,
and he was losing.
Self, right? You know what I'm saying? So he came home, set up a board. Once he set that board up, he was making his move to do what he eventually did. So I don't know if you want to lead into what came after.
I mean, okay, so looking at this movie, do you feel that parents should teach their children chess? Because it seems like it's a great tool to communicate how to navigate this world in a very smart, effective way. I feel like every time somebody uses chess as a tool in a movie, they're being taught wisdom and how to really navigate through this world effectively. Do you feel like that or no?
I mean, I think so. I mean, it's anything that improves your critical thinking skills, because if we haven't learned anything over this past 4 years, critical thinking skills, they don't think beyond the surface. I call them surface dwellers. They have cursory understanding of everything, and they're easily misled and led astray. But critical thinking skills and games that foster that, like chess, it allows you to, because in order to be effective at chess, I play, but I'm not like really good, because I don't, play often or have people.
Yeah, I've never played
on a regular basis. You learn yourself. I'm very aggressive and I'm a risk taker. Okay. So I don't mind losing pieces if I feel it would benefit me. Okay. But that's how I live my life, kind of. I take risks when I see fit, and I'm comfortable with the consequences. Either if it turns out to be successful or if it fails, I'm cool with that, because I rationalized it before I did it. And that's just me, but my personality comes out in my play. So if you a timid player, I'm gonna put you on the ropes, and then I'm keep the pressure on. And if you wind up putting me in a bind, as opposed to me being, it's almost like in a boxing match where somebody overdoing it. Sometimes if you just lay back and then you could hit them,
tire them out.
Same thing. So I would definitely say it does help with your critical thinking skills, and it helps you strategize. It helps you look at your situation from your opponent's perspective. And when you take that into consideration, you understand, and it all comes out understand. It's kind of like with this character sketch when you writing a script. If I write this person and they have a certain personality, everything that person does in the film should reflect that character sketch, that personality. He shouldn't do anything unless it's a plot twist. He should not do anything out of character. So when you playing the game of chess, you playing your opponent, you try to learn your opponent as quickly as possible. Then you can anticipate his or her moves based on what you did. You see what I'm saying? And you apply that to life, and that's what he had to do. He had to first have a fundamental understanding. What is Esteban about?
Yes.
What is my friend about? What is Corky? And Corky was the volatile one, and Corky, to be honest with you, Corky and Esteban was so easy.
Yes.
And I figured the scene that he learned about Corky was the scene when he came in to get his money. When he came in to get his money, he's like, hey, I forget the care. I should have wrote their names down. He was like, so-and-so, he out there tripping and I can't get, I can't get my money from him when he acting like that. So he went to him to get his money. So as he's talking to Corky, they playing cards. And then he turned around, the guy was picking up the card because he laid down and he, doing everything above board. But he didn't see that. What did Corky do? What you doing behind my back? I don't like that kind of stuff. This dude had trust issues. He don't he think everybody out to get him. Easily manipulated. So you got his understanding of Corky, coupled with his understanding of Esteban, knowing the big loudmouth of his buddy. He got his chess pieces all set up. Now all he got to do is put the thing in motion.
Play them against each other.
Hit them against each other. And then he knew, and then this is another thing, and I was talking because my daughter watched it too, and I was telling her, because she was like, why he had to shoot the dog since the boy died. I was like, I told her, I said, a lot of times people that go, eventually they say killing animals is like a stair step to becoming, more violent with humans. It's like a practice run.
Okay.
So he knew what he had to embark on. Now, this is just my own interpretation. I was
crushed.
But he had to kill a dog because people was about to die. So, it's like, in order to pull that trigger, sometimes you have to.
That's made him more courageous or something?
Yeah, or understand death and how final it is. And it was like I would look at it as the dog was a practice run for what he had to do. And am I going to be able to do this? Because once so I thought that was kind of leaning towards, him making that transition to, I'm gonna have to do some things, some things that might be violent, and to turn that page, I'm gonna have to take a life, and then it so happened to be the dog. That was my interpretation of that scene.
I'm with Haviland. I'm with Haviland. I was just because I love dogs. I don't own a dog because I'm in the wintertime. I'm not going back outside when it's cold anyway. But I love dogs, and so I was devastated when he killed the dog because I remember I also dope writing and the directing is like, when the big mouth friend, when it was like he had him in this dog fight, and I hate those things. Like, anyway. He was like all protective, like don't make the dog fight, and like that's dangerous to him. Like, why would you do that to the dog? So we're like, oh, he cares for the dog. He has this bond, for the dog, and then he goes and shoot the dog. Because I was like, why are you killing the dog? And at first I was like, is that maybe the dog is a reminder of his big mouth friend, and I was not clear, but I was definitely with Haviland, like, why kill the dog? He didn't do anything.
Right. But if you saw, the dog was something he actually cared about because he didn't want him to fight.
He didn't.
Like I said, as he's making that transition, he had to learn. He's learning about sacrificing for the big picture, for the overall win.
Right.
So that was another thing. Like in my way, I rationalized it. That was a stair step. He was going to have to do something bigger in the future that might involve somebody losing their life. And then, how do you come to cope with losing life like that? Or being the catalyst to somebody losing their life. Because he's orchestrating this.
He is.
So it's obvious he has emotion because they show, because in his establishing him as a character that we gotta like and root for, you had to see his vulnerable side, you had to see his caring side, you had to see his cunning side. Okay, so this was a part of his maturation to get him from point A to point B, in my opinion. And so that's how I looked at the killing of the dog. That was part of that, using, your pawns, using your pieces in order to be successful. And if it requires you to lose a friend, so be it. If it requires you to have to take this dog out in order to understand about life and death, and can you be responsible for taking people's lives in order to get what you want, that comes with, being a soldier. So
it was like he established his own rites of passage into manhood. Usually that is executed by men in the community, not by a 12-year-old. But again, his circumstances were so unusual. They shouldn't have been usual. They shouldn't have not been commonplace for a 12-year-old. He should be playing basketball and chess and talking about girls. But again, because of his right. environment, that is the choice that he made and that he was put in, right? Right. Also, I want to talk about how Mbushe's right character. What is the Nicole? I'll just say I knew Mbushe right. She, although again, she still had a sense of self, right? Even under the smog of smack, she still had a sense of self. She still had some semblance of boundaries. Although she didn't really like John Esposito's character. He was, because she knew he worshipped her, and she's like, I don't want to be around somebody who worships me, because at the end, like, you're just a thing to them. Like, they don't really respect your character, who you are on the inside. You're just something to be worshipped and put on a shelf. And so she understood that yes, he find me beautiful, but I'm really like an inanimate object to him, just something for him to possess, as you said. Like, you want somebody to respect you, not possess you. And she understood that, even under the smog of her being high all the time. And she just really numbed herself to what was going on around her. Like, every time we saw her, she was high. But she still was like, she wasn't a dummy. She just was always high.
Right. Like numbing the pain, whatever that pain may be. And that's something that we didn't know. What was that tragedy in their lives?
Right.
That split the family up in the first place.
Because the writer didn't explore where's their mother? What happened to the mother? Right.
Mm-hmm. And why is the father, forced to be distant?
Yes. Because he's living in this disheveled kind of like home environment. Like, for some reason, the writer didn't want us to know what led to him being in this environment, what led to them being separated. It was kind of like, oh, well, they're just not apart. And it's like, right. You don't think it's important for us to know what led to it in any way?
Yeah, that was kind of peculiar. They didn't give you that much background, but they did establish the fact that everybody thought she was beautiful, because when Sam was reflecting on, when he asked Fresh, how she looked, and she's cute. She's like, that's my sister. I don't know, what I'm saying? Like that. And he was like, and then he went to reflecting on how she would light up the room when people came in, and how he thought she was beautiful. So, but like, I was listening to her words when she was discussing, when Fresh was trying to get her to start going to Esteban, and she was saying the difference between James and Esteban was the fact that James didn't treat her special, and she used, the N-word, that she just a N-word hoe. or whatever. And that's what she liked. That's what she was comfortable with. So I was thinking it was a little bit of self-loathing there on her part. You know, excuse me. And by uh by Esteban being so enamored by her and wanting to worship her, and he's sitting there just stroking her skin, a street girl that's not feeling that way about herself can't receive that. You know, and she can't receive that. You know, it's not something that she wants. She rejects it because you can't feel this way about me if I don't feel this way about myself.
Right.
So that's how I was looking at that situation. And she's getting high to mask something traumatic. So something traumatic happened in that family that we'll never know. But the way it was written and set up, something had to be.
Hold on, PK, because when her father described, she sure is beautiful. He said it the way like a dude who was not her father would say it, right?
Kind of like, yeah.
Because when he said it, I felt uneasy. I'm like, my father better never describe me like that ever.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I gotta look at it again, that scene, to see. I was trying not to go there with it, with my thought process, but just think that, he just, thought he had a beautiful daughter. But when we talk about trauma and we talk about why he has to be distant, it would make sense, but we're just speculating. But I didn't want to go there because I kind of went there with the cousin situation. I didn't want that to be the theme of my thinking. but
yeah, we'll leave that right here. We'll leave that over here. And it really, not until you just brought it up now, I was like, she was fine or beautiful, just as still fine or beautiful. Or I'm like, okay. Anyway. Yeah, but anyway, going back to Fresh and the little girl that he really, really liked. So we dealt with some little peon. So I'm gonna let this buffering ride out. We know how this works on Zoom. Just let PK come on back. I'll just continue talking. So the Fresh, the little boy, the 12-year-old boy, the little girl he really liked, there was a drug dealer, was like a teenager or early 20s. He had this really hot temper, and he was playing basketball with Fresh, his friend, one of his friends, who was not a big mouth, but he was a good basketball player. And who was a good basketball player. And next thing you know, the little boy was beating him in basketball. And this whack dude got so pissed, he grabbed a gun and started shooting up the playground and ended up shooting Fresh, as the little girl he liked, the 12-year-old girl. Yeah, PK. So we had a little technical difficulty. I can't hear your audio.
Sorry.
Now I can hear you.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry. I don't know. It's my connection must have went out.
Oh, that's okay. I'm glad you're back.
Was you still recording?
Yeah, I'm still recording. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, I just ride out the buffering wave. Mm-mm.
Okay.
But I was saying that I was one of the scenes devastated me was when one of the local drug dealers, he was like late teens, early 20s, he was hothead, and he started playing basketball in the playground with one of Fresh's friends, or one of his classmates rather, and he was a really good basketball player. He was 12 like him, excuse me, and the little boy was basically dominating him on the court, you know, and he was getting all in his feelings, right? Overly emotional. And he pretty much got mad, and he started shooting up the playground and shot up the little girl that Fresh liked, the 12-year-old girl. Right. And that scene was devastating, the way he discovered her, because like everybody started running, and because she was walking towards Fresh. They're walking towards each other, I believe. And next thing you know, she's on the ground holding her throat and one leg shaking. You want to take over, PK, from that scene? It was heartbreaking.
Oh yeah. And then he was just fixated on her. He wasn't going anywhere. And he just walked over to her and applied pressure to her neck wound, and she just expired, and he never let go until the paramedics arrived to remove his hands. Yeah. So he was devastated at that point. And you knew somebody had to pay for that. Somebody had to pay.
Oh, somebody's going to pay for that. Yeah. Like, I'm getting teary-eyed now. Like, that's one of the most heart-wrenching scenes I've ever seen in a movie. Because I have a weakness for children. I don't want to, I cannot see children hurt. I cannot. It just hurts my feelings. I'm getting choked up now. So when I saw that little girl, so innocent, on the playground where they're supposed to be, and you got this 19 or 21-year-old overly emotional dude, don't know how to handle his emotions, and defeat is just a game. Relax yourself. Exactly. And just it's like, you know, they're kids, and you just start shooting wildly in the playground. Mm-hmm. Because the dude beat you in basketball, really?
Yep. And situations can manifest themselves, you know, where something so innocent gets perverted so quickly, and then somebody wind up losing their life. But unfortunately, those things happen quite often, you know, maybe not to that extent. Yeah. But they do sometimes end in gunplay. Sometimes people end up losing their life. And I was reflecting on the time where I went to the center from, you know, in the neighborhood where I'm from. And, you know, everybody, you know, you sign up to play basketball and you run your 5-on-5s, and then the people that come in, you know, they got necks. So myself and another one of my partners, we had necks. So we sitting in the bleachers watching the game. So this one guy on, you know, playing 5-on-5, they wind up losing the game. So he started beating up the people that was on the team that beat him. And I'm talking about fits. Now he was a thug dude from the neighborhood, right? So we watching, me and my buddy Jerome, we watching this cracking up, but he's literally stealing on everybody. And the people just took off. Even some of the people on his team just was disgusted. They threw their hands and they left the gym. But the other team, he was going after him. And then he got up to this, the one guy, he hit Terry in his jaw. Terry ran. Then he was trying to fight this other guy. He was the only one that stood up to him and didn't take the punch. He was like, we gonna fight. And he gave that up real quick. Not to say he would have lost, but he gave it up because he was faced with some resistance. But that just shows you how, even though in the movie, it was, you know, a couple people lost their lives, but but that kind of situation does happen with these people that, you know, they can't take defeat, or they got so much going on in their life and they just want to take something out, you know, just have a reason to justify them lashing out on somebody for something that they're going through, because it's got to be bigger than this basketball game, you know.
Yeah.
But then, like what we observed with his character, when the guy got him riled up about the $50, he ready to kill somebody over $50. Okay, so he was that getting mad and killing somebody over a game and getting embarrassed, you know, that fits his character. That's something that he would do. And then that shows he was dangerous. And like I said, he needed to be dealt with, and to be honest with you. And eventually that takes place.
And he was dealt with. I'm like, yeah, you're not acting ballsy now.
Right.
Where's you real quiet now. Talking all that game, and then he's mad quiet when when it really counted. I was like, you look, because so when he was taken out, I was like shrug shoulder. I'm like, you killed a little girl.
Right. But then it was unfortunate that his boy had to go with him. So yeah, so that was unfortunate, because I actually felt for his boy, you know.
Right.
He had to suffer the same fate just through association.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because but so I don't know if you want to get into that, how to get to that part, because that's when everything starts to culminate.
No, you can talk about that part, because some of it is still sketchy that I don't remember because it's been like a week. But you can go ahead and talk about that part.
Okay. So basically, at this point, after the killing, they question Fresh, and of course he's a street guy, so he don't see nothing, he don't know nothing, he didn't hear nothing. All he knew that's I see this young lady and I'm trying to help her. So he goes home, and then that's another thing. They show him kind of naked. I didn't understand that.
Me neither. What's that all about?
The necessity for that. So that was kind of weird. But anyway, you know. So
that was borderline exploitation.
So anyway,
like that shit.
So he goes home and get cleaned up. Yeah. So I didn't get it. But anyway, so he goes home. So then now they're establishing the fact that the information is out there that saying that Fresh was moving instead of heroin, he was moving base for Esteban. Now Esteban was a heroin dealer, and Quirky was a crack or cocaine dealer. So they didn't have conflict. They didn't have a beef because they had two different clientele. So they didn't bump heads. But James also sold heroin, but I guess his selling of heroin didn't conflict with Esteban to the point where Esteban wanted to move in. But the way he talked about it, he was saying that basically heroin was a gentleman's type of endeavor, where they don't beef like that, like with the cocaine and the crack dealers, like how they beef for territory. He said, because the customers pretty much are loyal, you know, and they don't have to worry about it. You know, whoever got the best smack they just got the best smack. So he used his friend to put the misinformation campaign out there. Then Esteban is trying to dip into Corky's lane, which is the cocaine or the crack or whatever. And when Fresh gets his stash taken away from him and it comes to Corky's attention, that's when he is faced with what happened with the girl and the young man that he was working for when he was running on the streets for Corky. And he was talking about that he made him get the drugs from the Hispanic dealer, and he was trying to sell this base behind Corky's back, which was a trigger for Corky. He's like, oh, what are you talking about? So then they say, no, he's lying, man. You can't believe him. And he said, he said, I'm not scared of you. I'm not gonna cover for you no more. He said he would kill me, but I ain't scared of you. I ain't scared of you no more. So that made Quirky be like, wait a minute, because he already knew what buttons to push with Quirky. Because if he gonna go off on somebody about a card game, what's he gonna do about somebody moving in on his territory?
Right.
So he already signed his death certificate right then and there.
Yeah.
Played him to a T. So they wind up getting snuffed out. But Corky was still trying to understand what's going on. So that's when he put his long game into play and said, hey, what's going on is Esteban is getting in league with James, and they gonna start selling cocaine. So they gonna meet up at 6 o'clock at James's. They always there. He was like, bet. So now he got Quirky upset about somebody moving in on his territory. So he knows he's gonna come deep to come see what's going on with them. And then in the meantime, he tells Esteban that James is moving in on your territory. But remember, he's not tripping on that too much because it's a gentleman thing. But then he adds to the fire that, when you was asking me where my sister was, I didn't tell you the truth. She was really with James. Now that sparks his attention. So that's where she going, huh? She going to James. And then he tells him they're gonna be, he's in there with Quirky and they trying to move in on your territory or whatever. So they'll be meeting up at 6. You need to be there. So now he's bringing these 3 elements, these 3 drug dealers all together, and they all upset, and he knows they're all gonna be gunning for each other. And then when the time comes, he pulls up with Esteban and his crew. They sitting there across the street and they see Quirky and his gang get out the van and go up there with Esteban. Go up there with James. Now Quirky is going to see what James is doing and how is he moving in on his territory. So, but Esteban doesn't know that. He just knows that, okay, they having this meeting. The information I got from my man Fresh was good information. He's on his point. So they go in and they have a big shootout.
Yep.
Quirky and his crew get shot up. A couple Esteban men get shot up. James is killed. So so Esteban kills him. They come back. They leave the guns in the car and they take off. They stash the guns in the secret compartment in the back seat where Fresh is sitting back there with them. They go drop Esteban off at the apartment he has with Fresh's sister.
Yeah.
So they laying up and they're supposed to take Fresh home. He doubles back and he takes the weapons out of the back of the car and he goes back to his sisters. He waits until Esteban's number 1 in command leaves and he goes up there and Esteban lets him in. He was surprised to see him because he was supposed to go home. And while he's there, before he goes up, he makes a phone call to the police. So now he got the police going to the apartment and on a call. So while the police is at the front door, he takes the time to stash the guns and some drugs under the bed.
Nice setup.
And set Esteban up. And then after that, he catches up. He denies that was his stuff, and Fresh is just looking at him. And he said that he was gonna kill my sister, and he had a gun, and he told him everything. And then his sister was high out of her mind. She said, "That boy lying." he lying. Nah, he lying. And he was like, "Oh yeah." And then they look under the bed. There it is. Drugs and gun. Esteban going up the river. And then also told them about the murder that took place. over at James's place. So now he's in trouble for drugs, possession of weapons that's linked to probably a quadruple or 6 or 8 guys coming up dead. So he was able to exact his revenge, get his sister free, went into witness protection program together, and part of the things they stipulated, they wanted to be in a house or free from the projects.
Yes, that was the first thing you said, right?
Yep, free from the projects. So he basically executed his plan to the best of his ability, and it was successful. And then the movie ends with him going to visit his father to play a game of chess.
We got to take a moment of silence for that scene. That reaction that Fresh conveyed non-verbally, everything. 5-star, gold star, magnificent. Let me take over.
Go ahead. That's your spot.
Yo, when he walked up to his father's chess table and he sat down, the windows to his soul was full of hurt and tears and anger and resentment. But at the core, he was so hurt. He had been so emotionally hurt and psychologically hurt. His friend is dead. His dog is dead. He had to have people killed. Like, he had to do all of this manhood shit, protect and provide. And to me, thank you, thank you, Father, for the strategy. But this was your fucking job to do. You should have been doing this, not me. And I'm angry that I have to do this. I'm glad you're here, but I'm angry that I have to take on, your role, your responsibility. The tears in I was shook. I was I was shook. Bravo, bravo, bravo. Go ahead, PK.
that was excellent. He just emptied the emotional bag right out. And it was nothing to be said.
Nothing to be said.
Because and Sam Jackson's reaction to it was that, like, okay, here's something else I wasn't a part of, or here's something else that had to be taken care of in my absence. What is it? What now? Is this something I want to even ask about? All of that,
I mean, that's how you end a movie. This kind of movie, there are no words. There's and Fresh was very quiet. He was really a loner to me. I mean, he had his friends, yes, but at the core, he was a loner. And because of the way in which he was raised, the environment, to me, that was his means of protection, of survival, right? I can't really let anybody in too much. I'm processing. First of all, I'm 12 years old, so I'm growing, right? My body's changing. I'm having to do all this by basically, he had like the weight of the world on his shoulders at 12. That's a burden. That's got to be a burden, PK. Right. And nobody he didn't really open up too much to his father. Like, he just was like a sponge. He was soaking all that wisdom, but it was like, you got to release all that. And he just had bravo.
Yeah, no real outlet. No real outlet for him.
No, he's got to go to therapy after that. And I know therapy is not cool. It's probably not going to happen.
Right. But yeah, he definitely, he took on the world, but he was prepared. And he might have surprised himself too. you know.
So that type of young man, if he had, what type of, he would be a hell of a businessman, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, with his ability that he exhibited in the film and what he had, he can probably take on anything, almost anything. But then that's that nurturing environment conversation. Had he been in a loving, nurturing environment, would he had to build those skills that we see as transferable?
Mm-hmm.
He have not developed those skills in a different situation. Maybe the situation that he was placed in helped cultivate those skills that we see and abilities that he has. And it definitely matured him at a fast rate. That's for sure. So it's one of those things, yeah. But if we look at it in a different setting, he might not be the same individual.
True. That's a very. Also, I thought about Fresh, like, you know, looking at him in totality is like, that is why it takes a man and a woman to procreate. And additionally, it takes a man and a woman to rear the child, because the man and the woman have something unique to offer to the child in their rearing, right?
Right.
And he needs the nurturing aspect of the mother. He needs the protection, and the mother and the father can, of course, espouse wisdom to the young man and the young woman. But, you know, what is unique about men and women, that contributes to them being balanced young people, right? And so when you're missing that on a consistent basis, it definitely can slant your, it will, I don't want to say stunt your growth, but it definitely, like, I don't know the words, but it's going to have an adverse impact on you being balanced, right? What, do you feel differently or the same?
Oh no, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it's both, you know, sexes bring something to the table that's needed in the rearing and development in the child's life. Certain things that a young boy needs from his father and mother, and there's certain things a young lady needs from their father and mother. And when those things are working in tandem, you help, you know, for the most part, to develop well-rounded, balanced, emotionally balanced children. Now, there's always instances where it doesn't work out that way.
Yes.
But for the most part, it helps. It helps a great deal, you know, in developing, you know, children developing to be productive citizens and well-adjusted, you know, in that respect. But as long as the parents are, you know, balanced and have their, you know, sanity, and they work together to develop the child and put everything into the child that they should, you know, the sky's the limit, you know.
Yeah, I will say that to wrap up this, I am happy at least that his father, Samuel Jackson, was very present in his life, that he had this masculine energy, espousing wisdom via chess, because he could have had a father in his life just talking, sharing information that's not useful, right, for him in any way. It's just like, who cares? So at least he did have, you know, he was literally interacting with his father. And so yeah, I'm glad that I experienced this movie again, and as a mature adult and a mature and an ongoing filmmaker actress, I definitely gleaned some gems from this movie. Again, bravo to the acting, and I really did overall enjoy the story. Some things were tricky, like him being naked and blah blah blah. I'm not a fan of that, but overall, I still enjoyed this cinematic narrative. I would definitely take this. I would definitely, as I say now, if I was at the cinematic art gallery, I would definitely buy this painting. Some paintings I would leave with the art gallery, but I would definitely buy this painting and dissect it even. There you go. There you go. There you go. Yeah. And then for the young man to be able to carry this movie as, you know, he carried the movie. And I don't know, was he a new actor or had he had theater film experience already prior to this movie?
Yeah, I don't know if this was his first film or not. But he did, like you said, he did an excellent job. Excellent job. He hadn't done much. I don't recall seeing him much since then. Since growing up, but he was in The Wood. I remember him in that. Probably a few years later. You remember that movie?
Yes, he was also in the television miniseries "Their Eyes Were Watching God" with Halle Berry in 2005.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that.
Yeah, that's a great one. That was a great one. We should definitely do a film reaction to that movie. And that's available on YouTube for free. But yeah, he was excellent. He carried the movie really well as a lead act. He was the lead actor, right? He was the protagonist. Okay, so to wrap this up, we're going to break it down 5 stars: performance, story, and the movie itself, the filmmaking of the story. So you go first, PK. So let's do filmmaking, the movie.
5.
Storytelling.
5.
Acting.
5.
Okay, I will go next. Filmmaking, 5. Storytelling, 4.75 because he was naked. And we didn't know about the parents' background at all. So I'm going 4 and 3/4. And the acting, 5. Easy. Oh. So today is Valentine's Day 2021. So PK, shout out a wonderful relationship feature film that you would shout out on Valentine's Day.
I'm going with Love and Basketball.
Why?
Because I'm a sports enthusiast, number one. I thought they made a good couple. Because Sanaa is one of my celebrity crushes, so one of many. so was the young lady that played Nicole in Fresh. She's one of my favorites.
And Boucher Wright.
Yeah. So but you know, I like basketball. I like the characters. So that's a movie that I could watch. It wasn't so mushy. You know, and it was just a pleasant overall, feel good, you know. And then I also like the fact that it wasn't the man doing the heavy pursuing of the female. So that was a kind of a nice little change of pace where, you know, the woman, she's like, wait a minute, this is my heart too now. And I'm going to be responsible for it. You know what I mean? Yes. And I'm going for what I want, you know, and be damned. If it happened, it happened. If it don't, I put it out there. Whereas a lot of times, that's the man goes out on that limb for love, you know, and face the potential of the rejection. So from that aspect, that little twist component of it, I appreciate it, because, you know, you're real vulnerable when you put yourself in that position to be rejected, you know, and the ball was definitely in his court. And then when she lost, and then he threw that ball back to her, it was like, hey. So yeah, that's mine. What about you?
Well, I'm gonna say something different because I know everybody's expecting me to say the one and only blah blah blah, but I'm gonna go a different route. I'm gonna say I would shout out Disappearing Acts, starring Sanaa Lathan and Wesley Snipes. It was a novel adaptation by the great Terry McMillan and directed by the great Gina Prince Bythewood, who also wrote and directed Love and Basketball. So shout out to Gina Prince Bythewood. set in New York. And I just thought it was a wonderful novel. And I also thought it was equally a wonderful adaptation of that story. You know, this woman moved to Brooklyn. She's a singer-songwriter, also a singing chorus teacher in high school, but she really has a passion to be a singer-songwriter. And she meets this guy who's a construction worker who doesn't really have his itch together. You know, he doesn't have his high school diploma, and he hasn't really stood into his manhood and really made moves so that he can be an independent man, you know. And they have this wonderful chemistry and passion, and they realize they kind of connected at a time where they really weren't ready to be in a relationship because they just didn't have the stuff together. So it could be a harmonious relationship. It wasn't about, you know, finances and blah, blah, blah. And they had some trickiness that happened along the way, but ultimately they reconciled in a way that they had a child. And it was I just love how it unfolded. And, you know, women, we have a connection with a man, even though we know his stuff ain't really together, but you know, it's hard pressed to connect with somebody, period. So when you do connect, you trying to overlook things that, like, you know, may be a problem later on, but you just dive in and swim anyway. So I can appreciate this movie, Disappearing Acts, by the great Terry McMillan, directed by Gina Prince Bythewood. So anyway, y'all, happy Valentine's Day for those who have a lover in their life. Yeah. So PK, thank you for joining me. Did you want to share anything else before we wrap this on up?
No, just want to say happy Valentine's to all the viewers. Happy Valentine's Day to you. And thanks for having me on once again. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Everybody, so if you get a chance, please check out Fresh. So such a great movie and a great tale. Yes, Fresh, starring the great Samuel L. Jackson and the great Sean Nelson as Fresh. He was wonderful in the Boucher rights. All right, take care, y'all. Peace. Chinese. Oh, sorry. Also, too, if since it's Valentine's Day, if you want to check out a independent romantic love story, check out my movie Dark Seed. You can check it out on Amazon Prime. Okay, peace. Chinese.